Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. In this best-selling memoir from 2016, J.D. Vance talks about his upbringing in the backwoods of Ohio and Kentucky. The book focuses on 3 generations going back to his grandpa and grandma, his mom, and his sister and himself. J.D. Vance grew up in a world that is very different from the world that he ended up in. In the backwoods of Ohio, he was surrounded by people that were very poor. The high school dropout rate was high. There were lots of drinking and drugs and fighting and domestic abuse. And these were all part of the world that he lived in. And so in the book, he talks about how he had to adapt to that and how it affected him, both at the time and down the road. Everything that J.D. Vance brings up as an example of hillbilly culture, I have to admit, is completely foreign to me. And so it was eye-opening to me that people actually grew up with this as just the nature of their childhood. He talks about fights he got into. He talks about his mom going 100 down the road and saying she's going to kill him by running into a tree or something. He talks about how his grandma set his grandpa on fire, and his mom had to rush in and save him, and it's a miracle it didn't kill his grandpa. Anyway, it seems that alcohol and drugs fuel a lot of the poor decision-making in this book. That's what seems to be one common denominator in all of this. Meanwhile, his mom is going through many relationships as JD is in that middle school, elementary age. And he talks about how frustrating it is not to have that stability. And it's not until high school that he lives with his grandma and grandma alone that he finally has some stability in his life. And he credits that for allowing him to get through high school and to have good grades, which leads the path to him being a Marine, which led the path to him getting into Yale Law School. So he gives a lot of credit to his grandma just for being there and for being a stable force in his life. The book really reminds me of the My Fair Lady story, only without Henry Higgins' character. J.D. Vance is trying to escape this hillbilly world. He's trying to make something out of his life, but all of the things that were ingrained to him in childhood keep coming back. There's a great part in the book where he's talking about watching The Terminator with his grandma, and he said that he always thought of his grandma as the good Terminator. But that was the framework of what he was when he was a child. There were good Terminators and bad Terminators all around him. And it wasn't until he got into the Marines, he started growing up and realizing that he could be a good Terminator or a bad Terminator. It was eye-opening to him that his actions actually mattered. He's able to do all these things, and yet he still wants to retreat when times get hard. He still wants to break into a fight if someone talks ill of his family, and he still has a hard time dealing with relationship issues without lashing out, because these are the examples that he's grown up with, like parents yell at each other, but there's some hitting involved. He has a hard time seeing the world without these things because he's never had the good relationship examples when he was young. Also in the book, he talks about where these problems came from and where the solutions might lie. The problem, as he sees it, is a lot of these people that he's grown up around have this learned sense of helplessness. People refuse to make the structured decisions that would make their life better, and he includes his own family as perfect examples of this. A government solution isn't going to fix everything, and neither is it going to fix everything to just say everyone needs to change their attitude. So it's a complicated problem with a complicated answer. I also watched the movie after reading the book because I love Ron Howard. I think he's a great filmmaker, and I thought it was very true to the book. I was impressed. The acting was amazing, the story was well told, and most importantly, it captures the world that J.D. Vance creates in the book with images. I thought the movie captured the mother very well and the sense of conflict with JD of how to feel about his mother, because on the one hand, she put him in this terrible situation of growing up without a solid father figure, but on the other hand, she's his mother, and you really feel the conflict there because she keeps messing up and she keeps asking for forgiveness and he keeps standing by her, but then she messes up again. And also her unpredictable moods, because everything will be laughing and funny one moment, and then she's yelling at him, and just how hard it is to live with that unpredictability. The movie also expanded on an interesting point in the book where JD wants to be hard on his mom, but he realizes that she grew up with a rough childhood too, and so he kind of sees this cycle in the hillbilly culture that each generation has a hard time getting out from under the previous generation. So that's how, in the end of the movie, he's able to forgive her. Finally, I have to bring this up, and I'm speaking apolitically here. I thought that was a great moment at the RNC when J.D. Vance is accepting the vice presidential nomination, and he tells his mom that he loves her and he's proud of her for being 10 years sober. And she stands up, and you can see her mouth, "That's my boy." That's such a cool moment in the context of everything they went through to get to that point. I thought it was a great moment. All in all, I thought it was a good book, very enjoyable, very eye-opening, and a great movie to bring a lot of it to life. As for the book itself, I'm going to give it 4 stars.